The Athletic.
I'm Mark Chapman. Welcome to the Business of Sport podcast on The Athletic. With us as usual, The Athletic's Matt Slater. The focus of today's pod is the European Super League because it just will not seem to die, will it? Matt, you've written an excellent piece on The Athletic, which we'll discuss here. I think a lot of people, particularly in this country, would have thought that it had been killed off, really. Since everybody pulled out, bar the three, what has been happening?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, this was, in terms of product launches, this is like New Coke and, you know, all the other sort of famous disasters. Launched on a sort of by midnight on a Sunday, April the 18th, I think it was, sort of dead by April 20th, with the English clubs, the 6 English clubs pulling out, you know, amid huge fan protests. I mean, talk about people voting with their feet. You know, if they were flying this kite, you know, see how it went. Well, it was shot down. It was a disaster, right? And it all seemed completely done and dusted within the week. As I said, the 6 English clubs pulled out, and then AC and Inter and Atletico pulled out. Within about a week or so, early May, there were settlements reached with the UEFA for these 9 clubs, 9 of the 12, which involved paying goodwill contributions. Can't call them fines because fines sounds like a punishment, which we will get into. That's quite important. So these goodwill contributions were made with a further 5% to come off their UEFA revenues for these clubs in 23-24. We fast forward about a month, the Premier League made similar agreements with these clubs, you know, which came across to many people as sort of slaps on the wrist. But again, the language was important. These were goodwill, these were settlements, not sanctions. So that was what was going on in terms of the punishment, if you like, for these clubs. In the background, you had 3 of them, Barca, Real, and Juve, who didn't go along with any of this, who didn't say sorry, who didn't drop the idea, who didn't race for the exit. And to understand why, you have to go back to April the 18th. You have to go back to those first few crucial days. Because what the 12 Super League clubs did right at the beginning was they got a commercial court in Madrid to file a preemptive injunction against disciplinary action. They knew this was coming. They knew, because obviously they've been talking about it behind the scenes for a while, they knew that UEFA in particular, but UEFA and FIFA acting in concert were going to act against them. They were going to say, this is a breakaway league, this destroys the football pyramid, our calendar, blah, 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 all the good things that football does that we're responsible for. This is a threat to that, and we are going to take disciplinary action against you, which will be, for example, banning you from our competitions. It could well be banning players from playing international tournaments, and so on and so on and so on. A Madrid court, a judge in a Madrid court, before any of that, said, you can't do this. That would be an abuse of a dominant market position. I'm using EU competition law. You have a right, this third party, this organization and your promoters and your backers, you have a right to promote and to propose a new competition. Of course you do. And any attempt to stop that, as I say, is contrary to EU law. So with that preemptive injunction that then you could argue UEFA and FIFA ignored, the flip side, of course, is that they didn't need to do anything because the fans had voted. That's what really killed this. But from a legal point of view, the 3 clubs felt, do you know what? We don't need to quit. We don't need to hold our hands up and say never, never, never again, because we have a court ruling. Now, as I said, that's been there. They chose to use that as their defence. They didn't say sorry to UEFA. They didn't go cap in hand to the European Club Association and say let us back in. They didn't go to La Liga and say don't punish us. None of that happened. In June, the court in Madrid reminded UEFA, by the way, you know, you're in breach of our injunction. And if you, for example, Alexander Ceferin, if you land in Madrid, we might serve you a writ. You know, so you are in contempt of court, basically. The Swiss authorities had to acknowledge that. UEFA have been ignoring him. They've been pretending, who is this little man down in Madrid that has no jurisdiction over me? The Swiss authorities said, by the way, you know, they might have something here. Let's refer this to the European Court of Justice. Let's go straight to the end here and get European Court of Justice, you do European competition law to deal with this. And that, I think, is what most people thought would happen, right? At some point next year, we're going to have a big Bosman type ruling on this. And that's, I think, what UEFA wanted to happen. They suspended their action against Real, Barca and Juve, and they thought that would be it. But no, the Madrid court did not take that. Last week, gave them one last warning, saying to them, no, we didn't mean suspend. We meant stop, rip up. And those settlements you did with the 9 clubs, they're all contrary to my injunction. UEFA, this beginning of this week, begrudgingly, at the last minute, went, yeah, all right then, we'll do that. And then Tuesday morning, the best bit, by the way, that was